Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. You're watching ProPix TV, and I am James Cousineau at the studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. On this special edition of Live Chat with James, we're going to be exploring the children who are missing in Pictou County, Nova Scotia. Little Lily Sullivan, 6 years old, and her younger brother, Jack Sullivan, who is 4 years old, have been missing for over a week in the Pictou County region of Nova Scotia. At this time, there are still no leads and no clues as to where the youngsters got to. It is at this point alleged by the family members, the mother and the stepfather, that the children had wandered out through the sliding door to play in the backyard. And as such, there are other questions that have popped up and inconsistencies throughout the investigation. Today we're going to take a look at those inconsistencies. We're going to take a look at what some of the specialists and others have been saying on social media. We're also going to look at some of the comments that are being made on social media about the parents and inconsistencies that people pick up. Now, it is important to understand that each person is entitled to their opinion, but it does not directly point to any type of guilt or association of guilt by the parents. The parents have been behaving in suspicious ways, but it should not be automatic that they are guilty in the minds of the courts and the criminal justice system. What is also important is that the mental capacity of individuals and predictability of behavior cannot always be just that. It cannot always be predictable and associated with guilt, even though some professionals may link it to that. At times, the brain has a way of either fight, flight, and other options, as well as just acting out of just self-preservation. So again, just because there is strange behavior or stuff that most people would not figure being common behavior or acceptable even behavior, when your children are missing, it again doesn't infer that they are guilty. However, there are a lot of questions to be answered. With that said, of course, the biggest one is why the mother of these two missing children would leave the county, would leave the area to stay with family elsewhere in the province. Now, Nova Scotia is not a huge province by any stretch. However, if it was my children who were missing in the bush somewhere, as they allege, I would not be gone from that area. I would be out there searching night and day to bring my children home safe. At this point, it is very bizarre that she left the area. Now, also take into account that one of the children, the 16-month-old that was not missing, that was in the room allegedly with the stepfather and the mother at the time the other two went missing, has now been taken into protective services or child protective services in Nova Scotia. Once again, if I had two children missing and my other was put into protective care, I would not leave the area. I would be there so that when they said you can visit your child, the 16-month-old, or that you can take custody of your 16-month-old, I would be there so I could be close and be within response time of being very rapid. Excuse me, folks. And again, I would not be leaving the search area because when my children are found, and I would be hoping that they would be found, so I would not leave that area because I would want to be reunited with them as soon as they were located. I would not leave the area altogether. The fact that the mother deleted her Facebook profile, well, that's not a big concern in my personal opinion because there are a lot of internet trolls out there that would be saying nasty things. It would also be tough to be on the internet to see what the speculation is. If you are completely innocent and people online are raking you through the coals and judging you before any guilt or association of guilt or even any real evidence presents itself, if you are innocent, that would be tough to be able or to have to watch everyone out there judging you. With that said, when you act in certain ways when your children are missing, then of course that leads to other issues, we'll say. Now, of course, we know that there are a lot of different people voicing opinions, both online and in the community, and that is some fair and some not so fair. But if your children are missing, once again, are you going to just leave the area? That is a big concern. Now, other concerns are that they are or there are reports that the children were not in school for the week prior to them missing for 4 days during the week. One day was a professional development day or a non-service day, whatever they want to call it in that province. But essentially there was no school in session that day, so that fell midweek. Again, so there were 4 school days in the week, none of which the children were there for. They were allegedly sick during that time. Other people online are saying, well, if your children were sick, why were they outside playing? Well, let's face facts. I mean, just because your child isn't feeling well, it doesn't mean that you lock them in their room or lock them in the house. Sometimes fresh air and a bit of playfulness outside helps to help people feel better. And so I wouldn't speculate just based on that. However, I would be concerned that the parents were allegedly still in bed trying to get some more sleep while 2 young children were out playing in the house and allegedly went outside to play, closing the patio door. Things got quiet. The parents decided to check on them, and at that point, they were gone. Now, let's take a look. This was May the 2nd at approximately 10 a.m. that the call came in to the police department in Nova Scotia. And this is concerning because of the fact, as I said, nobody had really seen the children for the 5 days because they were homesick, allegedly. Something that we're not hearing, though, is any type of statements or information coming out of the other 2 people who allegedly live on the property. And that, to me, is concerning because you would think that if there was concern of abduction, that, of course, we would want to know if they had seen or heard anything. By not having any reports out there or any statements, it is assumed that they heard nothing, and there was nothing for them to be concerned about in terms of stranger abduction at that time. Further to that, it also leads to wonder why there has been such a radio silence that way. So again, is it that they had some type of involvement or potential involvement, I should say, and are the police investigating further? We do know that as of last report with the stepfather, the police were bringing in a polygraph specialist to do some tests, not only on him, but on other family members as well, as he asserts that he had been requesting this since the beginning, just so that he could be ruled out as a suspect by the police, and especially by the online community and of other family members of the in-laws and others, I guess. He has kind of alluded that there may be more on the side of the mother in terms of the missing children. But again, if they are both sticking to their story that they were in bed, the children had come in, went back out, they are alleging that they had both seen the children or heard the children that morning shortly before the disappearance. So again, if that is not the case, and if the mother had something to do with the children disappearing, or the father, or both, then that means that there is some type of deception and misrepresentation of the facts going on. This could further be alluded to in terms of the narratives in which both parents are pushing. They are pushing certain narratives that the children went out the back door. They could have escaped through the hole in the fence, or not escaped, but wandered off to explore in the bush by exiting through one of the holes in the fence that surround the property. Some people online have been speculating that that is a dishonest fact or a lie, that the children exited the backyard because it was fenced in. But I think that some people have missed the point that there are allegedly some holes in the fences where the children could have escaped from. Again, I'm just going from preliminary information, so that is important to keep in mind as well. Excuse me, I don't know why I'm so tired today, but in any event, that is just an important fact to keep in mind as well. So at this point, I would like to share a video with you in terms of some of the information or facts and statistics about missing individuals in Canada. I do believe that there is an important role for information to be properly brought up and shared. So we will just take a quick peek at a video that shows you some of the statistics and information about abductions in Canada and missing persons overall. So again, this is a video that was produced by the RCMP and the Government of Canada in raising awareness and education about missing persons in Canada. And this was produced prior to these children going missing, so this video is not a direct correlation or link to those to that incident. So let's just jump this over here. And we'll send this over to the screen behind me so that you can watch it on that screen, and I'll talk you through it for anybody who may be visually impaired and not be able to see the content or the text on the screen. This will allow you to be able to see that. So bear with me, and we'll get that pulled up on the screen here. Bear with me, folks. We're just having a technical issue that I didn't want to bring up that screen. So bear with me one moment and we will get it up here. So as these children, as I said, they are 4 years old and 6 years old. So they really wouldn't have gone too far away from the home given the terrain and the area in which they reside. It's very, very dense bush. Even searchers, RCMP, and others who were searching the area found it challenging to get through those areas just for the fact that it is such dense and tough areas. So here are some facts on abductions and missing persons in Canada. So in 2023, there were over 34,000 children reported missing. 26,000 of those were runaways. 124 reports were parental abductions, while 24 reports were related stranger abductions. Or unrelated, sorry. From 2009 to 2023, Canada issued 120 Amber Alerts. 56% of children, missing children cases are closed within 24 hours and 90% within 7 days. If your child is abducted, call 911 immediately. There is no waiting period when it comes to children being missing. And make sure to take preventative action to inform and educate your children. If you have any information, you can go to Canada's national website as well, canadasmissing.ca. And of course, remember that May the 25th is National Missing Children's Day in Canada. And if I'm not mistaken, it is an international day as well. So that gives you a bit of information about abductions in Canada and that they are not as common as some people would think. So bear with me, we'll get rid of this screen behind me.
In this video, we'll reveal the full list and break down the reason for each one, from national threats to diplomatic issues.
And the next video that I wanted to share with you is actually from the National Center for Missing People or Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains. Now, in Canada, again, once a case is has passed a certain time, it's still being investigated, although it may not seem to be because it's not so much in the public eye. But here is a bit of information about the National Center for Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains. And this is a part of, again, a series of videos that were created for educational purposes by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police and the Government of Canada to raise awareness as to how these cases are handled and how they continue to be worked on even long after people have seen them in the news. So just because they're out of the news and out of sight does not mean that they are out of mind. The police officers in Canada are very well trained. They have a very similar training structure and mandate across the country for all police officers. And then, of course, the RCMP in many areas who police a lot of communities throughout the country are also trained at the Depot Academy in Winnipeg, Manitoba. So when they are trained, they are all trained to the same standards and level of professionalism, which makes a big difference. In some U.S. areas, as well as other parts of the world, police are not trained in the same level or even, at the same professional guidance and structure as well as the content. So again, it can be varied depending on the region and the police officers involved, whereas in Canada you have a lot less of that differential between officers as to how they handle every case from start to finish, including from the initial case preservation of evidence and the integrity of the investigation. So let's take a look at information about the National Center for Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains to give you a bit more context as to how the Canadian system works and what they do in ongoing attempts to continue to solve missing persons case or cold cases, but also to identify the remains of individuals who may be located that they cannot identify.
Persons and unidentified remains established to improve investigations of missing persons across Canada and provide coordinated, multi-province services where needed. The NCMPR program has a number of services that fit together to assist with missing person and unidentified remains investigations. Law enforcement, coroners, and medical examiners can access NCMPR program services either through our partner regional centers where they exist in Canada or through the National Center. The National Missing Persons DNA Program is a partnership with the National DNA Data Bank. DNA profiles from human remains, missing persons, relatives of missing persons, convicted offenders, crime scenes, and victims are compared to help identify remains or provide investigative leads. The data bank provides all the science, while NCMPR coaches the investigator on the submission process, authorizes submissions, and manages the life cycle of profiles. In the first 5 years of the program, we had over 60 successful hits. Publication through national channels allows an investigator to put information out to the public in the hopes of generating leads. NCMPR's main publication service is the Canada's Missing website. The investigator decides what to publish and verifies the final product. The program also publishes certain profiles of missing children to the Global Missing Children's Network website for extra international exposure. The National Center has special expertise in handling international child abduction and missing persons cases. We monitor a toll-free phone number for law enforcement 24/7 to provide immediate assistance in abduction cases. NCMPR is part of our Missing Children, one of 4 federal government departments working together to locate and return children. We also coordinate the National Amber Alert Working Group and represent Canada on several international working groups and forums. The regional centers provide similar liaison and advisory services on a provincial level, such as help with the use of Provincial Missing Persons Acts. Our system runs an automated analysis on any new case or when information changes, trying to match missing persons to unidentified remains or identify patterns of interest. An investigator can request a manual analysis using sophisticated searches and comparison tools. We can provide other types of analysis as well, such as intelligence analysis if that's not available at your agency. We built a national database that has collected every missing and body entry on CPIC since 2014. The quality of a CPIC entry dictates the quality of the analysis and other services the NCMPR program will be able to provide, which is why we work with agencies to optimize their entries. The database can produce national statistics and research for a more accurate and a long-term understanding of missing persons cases in Canada as reported through CPIC. We deliver specialized training to law enforcement in Canada and abroad and share best practices that law enforcement use to update their own policies and procedures. This is the National Center for Missing Persons and Unidentified Remains. Our goal, helping investigators conduct the best missing persons investigations they can.
So there you have it, folks. As you can see, there are so many different resources at the disposal of the RCMP and police agencies across Canada. And by offering all of these national level programs that also deal with international abductions and removals, sometimes by parents to other nations or vice versa from other nations, to try and avoid detection or law enforcement by relocating to Canada. So they play a very vital and important role in that area. In addition, of course, as we touched on, for unidentified remains, to try and reunite those with families to whom they belong, or at least to identify them. When that goes through, of course, this is unrelated, or not unrelated, but it is not spurred on by the current case of the Sullivan children in Nova Scotia. But it is important, I think, for everyone to understand how the things work behind the scenes and different tools that are available, and how the case may not be in the news anymore, but still continues to be very actively and aggressively investigated and followed up on. We've seen many cases throughout North America that go unsolved, but it is very unusual in Canada for cases to go unsolved, especially when it comes to missing children. And you must also keep in mind that the majority of the missing individuals in Canada are runaways or parental abductions, where the children are located safe and sound and are not in harm's way. Since the last 10 years, when the Amber Alert system has been running, the vast majority of individuals, children who have been listed on the Amber Alert system, have been located and returned safely to their proper homes. There have been several incidents going back about 6 to 9 years where individuals were not successfully located in terms of being alive. But again, the vast majority do come home once they're on the Amber Alert system. The question that some people have, of course, is why is the Amber Alert system not being utilized in this case? And at that point, it is up to a certain criteria or checklist that the RCMP utilize in consultation with the Center for Missing People and Unidentified Remains. There are different levels of agencies that are involved in decision making, and if the situation does not check all of the boxes, then it is determined that the Amber Alert system is not going to be of a major benefit to the ongoing investigation. even though it may be in its early hours of the investigatory process. It is important for the police to understand what they are dealing with and what potentially the harm could come from an Amber Alert system. Now, given that information, sometimes it may be that they have no reason to suspect a stranger abduction and instead decide to not put that information out there in the public. Instead, they, in terms of the Amber Alert system, so again, they want to focus on getting the word out through local media to focus on the facts of the situation, but it may not rise to the same level of a potential abduction that maybe in this case, they were more concerned about the kids have wandered off into the bushes, gotten lost, gotten hurt, and other ways. So again, it all depends on the situation, and the RCMP and the Amber Alert system has been very effective when it is used, and that just to me demonstrates that they have a very good track record in knowing when to use it and when not to use it, when it could actually be hindering an investigation as opposed to helping. So again, it's trusted that the RCMP made that very educated decision based on their training, their experience, and their knowledge of this situation. It's always easy for people on the internet to start judging and making calls about it. But again, they are not the ones with boots on the ground, with the understanding of information that has not been released publicly. And let's keep in mind that there is information that's being withheld by the RCMP, and that is to maintain the integrity of the investigation and not to murky the waters of what their process is. Now, they do have the major major incident investigations unit out there. They have detectives. They have basically all of the resources at their disposal that they can use, and they use them in a very targeted and very effective way. So again, they are looking at every single possibility. And even though they have recently scaled back the search efforts, they are going into more targeted areas and focused areas in order to find these children. At this time, it unfortunately does not appear that they are looking at a rescue situation, but more of a recovery. And again, there's a lot of speculation on the internet about how much involvement or potential involvement that the parents could have. We're going to take a look at another video here that is online. And the reason I find this one important is because it does have information from a former member of the RCMP and of high-up processes and investigatory systems in Canada. So I think that it brings a lot of information to light. And also that it is a video hosted by someone who is an attorney. And in addition to that, he is also trained in deception of suspects. So I think that's an important point as well. So let's take a look at that. And again, the opinions here are just that. These are the opinions of those people.
The traditional and unceded ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. I also recognize that African Nova Scotians are a distinct people whose histories, legacies, and contributions have enriched that part of Mi'kma'ki known as Nova Scotia for over 400 years. At this time, I invite the following officers to the podium with me. Amy Hansen, Search Manager with Colchester Ground Search and Rescue.
That's how Nova Scotian police kicked off a press conference announcing that they were scaling back the search for missing preschoolers Lily and Jack Sullivan. But don't let that news or the apparent incompetence on display here fool you. I think their major crime unit knows what they're doing. So in today's video, let's watch a recent interview with a Canadian ex-cop talking about this case so you can see why. I'm Deception Detective, an attorney trained in statement analysis. This channel exposes lies and manipulation. So if that's your thing, hit subscribe. For exclusives, early access, and other cool perks, consider becoming a channel member. Link in description. If you're not familiar with this case, don't worry because the interview itself will bring you up to speed. So there's just one thing I want to go over before we grab our deception decks and start analyzing. And it's this: everyone is innocent until proven guilty in the eyes of the law. But this isn't a courtroom, I'm not a judge, and we're not a jury. We have every right to form an opinion based on the evidence available to us. And our opinion doesn't have to be beyond a reasonable doubt, nor does it have to be based on evidence that would be admissible in court. And doing otherwise is outsourcing your critical thinking to someone else. Alright, without further ado, let's listen.
Mornell, on the search for the missing Sullivan children, and we're joined by CTV public safety analyst Chris Lewis. Chris, during your tenure as Commissioner of the Ontario Provincial Police, of course, you would have seen similar cases to this. What struck you about that RCMP update yesterday and what they had to say? Was there anything?
Yeah, absolutely there was, Todd, and I saw many searches throughout my career through all ranks across the broad expanse of Ontario, and many of them ended well and many of them didn't.
So again, my apologies. I just wanted to pause that for a moment and just correct. I said that he had worked high up in the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, but instead he actually worked high up in the Ontario Provincial Police Force, or also known as the OPP. So just a correction there.
This is a heartbreaker, absolutely. But what struck me the most, I think, is that I left it with a feeling that the RCMP know more than they're telling us. And I get that. You can't tell the public everything. And the detective staff sergeant, I believe, the major crime fellow, said it very well. I just can't tell you certain things right now. Well, if there's certain things you can't tell, then ultimately there's leads they're following up, in my view.
If you've been here for a while, you'll know that we've analyzed a bunch of missing persons cases on the channel. And one of the most important factors to whether the person gets found or the culprits get prosecuted is the competence of the local police department. And that's because they're the first ones to show up to the scene and start collecting evidence and statements from suspects and witnesses. So they can botch it like the John Benet Ramsey case or William Turrell case over in Australia. They can nail it like the Chris Watts case or Madeleine Soto case. Or most frustratingly, they can let outside forces like another agency muddy the investigation like we saw in the Madeleine McCann case. Or in the case of Nicola Bulley in the UK, the media. Which is why I'm happy to hear Chris Lewis confirm, with his background as an ex-police commissioner, something that we've speculated about in the comments of my other videos in this series. That the local police's decision not to issue an Amber Alert for the missing children in the first place, and now to start scaling down the ground search, is a sign that they have a strong theory that they're working on, and that the Major Crimes Unit has enough discipline not to share it with all of us. Alright, let's keep listening.
We heard they don't think the siblings could be alive. Was that something of a surprising admission?
It was an absolute shock to me, to be honest, because I'm thinking after 5-6 days, there's a good chance they're still alive. The weather hasn't been that bad. I've seen searches where people have been 2 weeks in the bush under horrendous conditions. One man was legally blind and still alive. So you just never give up. So to make that statement also makes me think that they're suspecting something more than a couple of children lost in the bush.
Okay. The RCMP said there are spots they want to revisit. What does that tell you?
Well, it tells me that obviously, as they said, there's places they want to research. So, but where are those places? Are they within the area they searched? So are they going back to some specific dense areas to have an even closer look? Because, quite frankly, in dense bush, you can walk by a child and not see. And that's the sad reality of it all. So is that the plan, or are there other locations that they want to search?
When I made my first video analyzing this case 2 days ago, I titled it, "I Hope I'm Wrong," because I really do hope my theory about this case is wrong. However, once again, we have Chris corroborating something that I said in those videos, that the children, unfortunately, are probably deceased. And that's not just because the police seem to have some reason to suspect that's the case by winding down the search, but also because the mother Malaya and father Daniel are acting that way too. I won't go over all the indicators of that, but a quick one is that Daniel referred to Lily in the past tense when he was being interviewed about her only 4 days into their disappearance. And even more concerningly, as I pointed out in my most recent video in this case, So Many Red Flags, the mother, Malaya, has left the area. She's literally left the county, which is something that most biological mothers of children who might still be out there in the woods somewhere, cold and afraid, simply don't do. Moreover, as Chris said there, if they are going back to research areas around the house, it could be because they think they may have missed the bodies because they're so small. These kids were just 6 and 4 years old. All right, let's keep watching.
We heard that Major Crimes is involved. Should that tell us anything, or is that sort of de rigueur?
I think it's standard that investigators be involved in parallel with any search, particularly of children, not a lost hunter, but 2 children that shouldn't be in the bush. There'd be a search or investigation to say, was there some neglectful thing? I'm not suggesting there was. How did 2 little children get into the bush? Or was it something else? Was there a crime involved? Were they taken by somebody known or unknown? you know, etc. And there's all kinds of terrible possibilities that come to mind here. But obviously, major crime is there. They've had the big gun there, not a constable, detective, and a detachment. And so they're onto something here.
On that point, the stepfather has told us he suspects they might have been abducted. Does that trigger anything at the police level? How do they react to a statement like that?
Well, yeah, they'd be on it like, you know, absolutely, because why do you think that? Who do you think did it? Who had a reason to do it?
If you've seen my videos about William Turrell, a little boy who went missing in Australia back in 2014, you'll know how happy I was to hear Chris say that, because that is the way police forces should interpret when a suspect or the parent of a missing child pushes a theory. Unless there's evidence to suggest a kidnapping, the notion that the parent of a missing child only suspects a stranger kidnapping, one of the statistically least likely scenarios, is a giant red flag for a hoax. It's such a red flag I've included it on the Spotting Hoaxes card in my deception deck, my 52 favorite rules for spotting lies and manipulation. Conclusiveness about something that's not in evidence suggests that they have secret knowledge that they're not revealing to us. Whether that knowledge is that they fabricated the story entirely, which is why they know everything, or even more disturbingly, that they know for a fact the kid was kidnapped because they know who the kidnapper is.
Why do you think that? Who do you think did it? Who had a reason to do it? What makes you say that? Because at that point, as a father or stepfather or mother, you'd be thinking, oh my God, we have to find them. Where are they? Not suddenly out of the blue, oh, I think somebody abducted them. I mean, that's kind of a bizarre statement. But people are people, and they do and say different things when they're under stress. So, you know, it's certainly a red flag, but ultimately, what does that mean in the big scheme of things? Who knows at this point?
Yeah. We heard police say they don't think the children could have gone too far, certainly not beyond that search area.
My thoughts there, Todd, are that these are trained searchers in physical shape and proper equipment and clothing on, and they struggled to get to a certain point over a number of days. So in their minds, at the very least, they're thinking those kids could not have got further than point X. So we're going to go back and research. But then again, of course, there's the investigative piece, and we don't know where all that's going. But there's more to come in the next few days, I believe.
I agree, there's much more to come because this case is brand new, so make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you know when I post my next video about this case. Check the end card for my previous videos. Until next time, stay true. So again, we'll take a look at another video that points out a lot of red flags in this case, and I think that those are important to look at, but again, they are speculative, so be careful about what conclusions that you draw from it. But I think that overall, looking at all of the potential things that are going on, I think it's important to look at as well.
Said they're flying in someone to do a polygraph test. Is that on you?
That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for. I asked for that so early on, and there's not many places that do it in Canada, so they're flying somebody in.
Why do you think you need to do that? Do you think they don't believe you?
I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone. Clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations.
That's Daniel Martel, and I think he knows more about the disappearance of his missing stepchildren than he's letting on. And it's not just because he's somehow able to dismiss every online accusation, including those against the mother, who's statistically the most likely culprit except for himself, as crazy. So in today's video, let's analyze that recent interview and one of his earliest interviews and count all the contradictions and red flags. I'm Deception Detective, an attorney trained in statement analysis. This channel exposes lies and manipulation. If that's your thing, hit subscribe. For exclusives, early access, and other cool perks, consider becoming a channel member. Link in description. Even if you're familiar with this case, you might not be up to date with the most recent important developments. So before we grab our deception decks and start analyzing Daniel, here's a quick recap.
4 days into the search for his missing stepkids, Lily and Jack Sullivan, Daniel Martel is pleading with the public to keep their eyes peeled. Martel confirmed that when the two children went missing from the home behind me, Lily was wearing a pink shirt and pink rain boots. She was also carrying a white backpack with strawberries on it. Martel says although he didn't see Jack that morning, he is believed to be wearing a brown shirt, brown pants with a pull-up diaper on underneath, and blue rain boots with dinosaurs on them. According to Martel, his side of the family are currently the only ones at ground zero after Lily and Jack's mother left the county Saturday. But still, he remains, begging anyone with answers to come forward and bring his children home safe.
This is my third video about this case, and every time I play a news clip to set the table for new viewers, there's another glaring red flag. and at this point it's a Russian parade. First, we have Jack and Lily, who were reported missing on a Friday, but we've since learned that they were out of school the entire week. We have Daniel, a non-biologically related adult male, in the house of small children, which is heavily correlated with neglect. As of yesterday, we have the police winding down their search for Jack and Lily, suggesting that they have reason to believe that they won't be found alive. And finally, we have the biological mother fleeing the area while her kids are still missing, suggesting she has reason to suspect that too. I won't rehash every red flag from those videos, I'll link them at the end so you can check them out after this. For now, here's a quick clip from the last one because it's important to the analysis we're going to do today. Innocent parents tend to do 7 things when they have the opportunity to get on TV. For instance, parents of missing children, if they're innocent, if they actually have no idea what happened to their kid, talk about their kid in the present tense. Secondly, we can expect them to be cooperative. So if the police or the media are asking them questions, they answer fully and candidly. Third, innocent parents are inconclusive about what happened if there's no evidence to suggest one scenario over another. In this case, if they actually found 2 boot tracks showing the kids walked into the woods, there's no way to say for sure that they must have been kidnapped or that an animal dragged them off or any other scenario. They should be considering all possibilities. And that brings me to the 4th item on the checklist. If all possibilities are open, a kidnapping is also open. So typically, innocent parents look into camera and beg any kidnappers or anyone who might have their kid to please return them. Finally, we can expect innocent parents of missing children to directly ask the audience watching on TV for help because that's the only point of doing the interview, to get help, to get information out there. If they do anything other than that, like try to push a narrative or try to construct their own alibi, we need to be suspect about that. That's the rundown of my missing child presser checklist, and those are the 7 things we're going to listen for Daniel to do in these interviews or not do, along with any signs of deception or leakage. So without further ado, let's watch the interview he did 3 days ago, and then we'll watch the one I played in the intro, which he did 24 hours ago.
We were searching. We covered everywhere possible. Even in the first day, we did. Even with me running through the woods, I was ahead of the helicopters and ahead of the drones and stuff like that. Screaming as loud as I can, and just until my throat hurt. Running through water that was up to my waist. And as soon as I got back, I wasn't allowed back in the woods until a man dressed in a military outfit said I could go back into the woods.
4 days into the search for his missing stepkids, Lily and Jack Sullivan, Daniel Martel is pleading with the public to keep their eyes peeled, but he has begun to lose hope they are anywhere in the vicinity.
I hate being wet and cold, so they immediately would have came right back into the house. The only 2 prints are right beside the house facing the road, and then that's it.
Martel wants the search to be extended to include provincial borders in case the children were abducted, a reality he says is becoming more and more likely.
Post any officers they can get at the New Brunswick border, PI border, and get them at every airport possible.
Martel confirmed that when the 2 children went missing from the home behind me, Lily was wearing a pink shirt and pink rain boots.
As I said in my last video analyzing Daniel, he's actually doing a lot of the things on my missing child presser checklist correctly. For instance, in this interview, he's allowing for multiple possibilities. Maybe the kids wandered off, or maybe they were abducted, but he's not allowing for every possibility. And when I say that, I mean he's not suspicious of the mother. And when I said that, I got lots of comments, I'm assuming from new subscribers, saying, hey, DD, do you really expect these 2 parents to start suspecting each other or bashing each other on TV? And my answer is yes, that's what innocent people do because all options are on the table until proven otherwise, even suspecting your spouse. And it's not at all unique. We see it all the time on the channel. For example, with Gannon Stouch's mother, Kyron Harmon's mother, or Sebastian Rogers' father. In fact, as we saw in the intro, we're even starting to see signs of it in this case with Daniel. He didn't just say he wants to be polygraphed to exclude himself. He wants everyone to be polygraphed. But before we get too excited about his prospects of being innocent, we still have to finish watching this old interview from 3 days ago. So let's see what else he says here.
He also refuted the claim that the 2 children are nonverbal, saying while they are on the autism spectrum, they are quite trusting and say hi to everyone. According to Martel, his side of the family are currently the only ones at ground zero after Lily and Jack's mother left the county Saturday. But still, he remains, begging anyone with answers to come forward and bring his children home safe.
Anybody who has any information or you think you've seen something or hear something or any messages from friends about hearing something, just contact your local police services. Anything, guys. Anything.
It's the end of that interview, and as you can see, Daniel asked for help, which is a great sign. But it doesn't outweigh all the suspicious stuff, like him not suspecting the mother at all after she picked up sticks and left town, while her kids might still be out in the woods. And then not only do we have a contradiction about the children's talkativeness, remember initially they were supposedly nonverbal. Now we have him telling us how they say hi to everybody and they're super talkative. Coincidentally, or maybe not coincidentally, the mother said the same thing, which makes me think that this contradiction is a contradiction of convenience. Here's how I explained it in my video analyzing the mother.
We're looking outside, we're looking everywhere, yelling for them, and I instantly just call 911. I just had the instinct I needed to call. They're both really go-lucky children. They're so sweet. They talk to anyone. They'll talk your ear off. They will speak to anyone in a store. Everyone.
I don't like how she's leaving all those little breadcrumbs to sort of suggest or imply to us that the kids must have been kidnapped or gone off with a stranger by telling us how talkative they are and all that sort of stuff. It's unnecessary and it's pretty blatant if that's what she's doing. To be clear, I think the mother, Malaya, was definitely pushing a narrative when she was going on and on about how talkative the kids are, because it was unprompted, and for such a brief interview, it took up a lot of time when it had nothing to do with getting people to help find where her children are now.
That's right.
It was strictly theory pushing, which is the red flag for a hoaxer. Remember, they get on TV to push a theory or to build their alibi. Innocent parents get on TV to ask for help. As far as Daniel goes, I don't know why he's saying it. Maybe they scripted that they were going to say this beforehand, so they're on the same page. I'm not quite ready to go all in on him, even though I'm ready to go all in on the mother. So let's see if this most recent interview tips the scales.
You said they're flying in someone to do a polygraph test. Is that on you?
That's not just on me, but on everyone. That's what I asked for. I asked for that so early on, and there's not many places that do it in Canada, so they're flying somebody in.
Why do you think you need to do that? Do you think they don't believe you?
I think their side of the family doesn't believe me, and I just want to clear it up for everyone. Clear it up for everyone, not just the people online making crazy accusations and everything else.
Alright, so that's the clip, and I'm actually happy to see that things are breaking down between them, because it could suggest that Daniel's innocent. Or if they're both guilty, I'm glad they're turning on each other. Finally, I'll wrap up this video the same way I wrapped up so many others like Don Wells and Chris Proudfoot. Daniel, if you're open to an interview, contact me through the DD forum at the very...
So again, folks, it is a very challenging situation, but you can see that there are a lot of speculation out there. There's a lot of guessing, but there's also a lot that the people who are professionals in this field have brought up in terms of concerns of real world activities through not only a lot of research and analysis, but also through historic cases that they've dealt with or analyzed as well. So it is a very important point that there are certain narratives being pushed by both the stepfather and initially by the mother, who has gone radio silent. She has deleted her Facebook page. She has, there's a lot of different things that bring some concern there. And again, that is important to keep in mind and to look at in that regard. Now, as we were talking earlier, there are other issues that are at play here, and that is, again, the RCMP have pulled back on the scale and scope of the search. They have released a lot of people from the search teams and certain search parties. They are taking a more targeted approach now in order to move forward with this case. So once again, that is just out of an abundance of awareness as to what they are doing and how they are doing it. But it should also be noted the relevance of such moves and whether or not there is more information out there that that we're not privy to. And that seems to have been confirmed already by the RCMP and other people involved in the investigation in letting us know that, yes, there are many things that they cannot discuss at this point, and that would indicate that there is a lot of information, that's not available to us. And that is not uncommon. That is actually quite common for the RCMP. They want to ensure that not only are they utilizing every opportunity to speak to the public and gain information, but they are also very involved in protecting the integrity of the investigation. Should there be found foul play or an abduction or anything like that, they need to be able to ensure that evidence is presented to the Crown prosecutor to move forward with pressing charges, as well as the integrity of any trial or other criminal advancements of the case. So again, they do have to be careful on that. Now, I would also like to play a recording here, and we'll open that up and let you listen to it. And this again was the
6-year-old is the girl, I believe, and she's wearing pink. The 4-year-old is wearing some blue dinosaur boots. So yeah, I think that's all we kind of have right now. I asked the risk manager if he wants Constable Mason to depart there to go get some phone service to send those images or not.
Go somewhere and get service and get those photos sent off. Just make sure Mom stays close to the house there in case they happen to sneak out and get back into the house. Copy, and just for everyone's awareness, based on the profile, the children could have traveled at least 6 kilometers. So, keep that in mind.
Sergeant Young, for your awareness there, media release has been put out and a non-intrusive alert has been sent out to Pictou County.
Perfect, thank you.
So the non-intrusive alert would be that they're not initially suspecting an intrusion of the property by an abductor. So again, they're not looking at a third-party abduction or stranger abduction initially at that time. The other point there that they raised was that there has been in all points information sent out to the media so that the media is well aware and on board with any assistance that they can provide. When you look at a lot of the anger and frustration in today's media world, or against today's media, a lot of people forget and overlook the benefits of having a trusted and reliable media outlets on the ground, not only in local communities, but also online through traditional services such as television, radio, newsprint. There is still a benefit to that. And for all of those people who are out there slamming the media, calling them false news and false media, it is a really tough situation because you are creating distrust. You are creating discord against the media, who are in almost all cases, and I will give it that there are some fake media outlets out there. There are media outlets that have a certain policy or narrative that they're trying to push. But at the end of the day, the majority of media are out there because they are trying to bring the truth to the masses and to report on information that is important and relevant in today's society. So again, that definitely plays a role. Now, as we also look, there are a lot of people offering opinion and speculation on the internet as well. And I'll read you some that have been posted to X, formerly Twitter, some of those statements that people have been putting out there. And they may or may not be accurate, but at the same time, it just shows how polarizing the current situation is when it comes to not only the local community, but the world. So let's take a look at some of those comments that have been shared on X and responses to videos on YouTube and so forth. Linda Post 3954 on YouTube said that she said they cannot hear the children outside. Then she says it got quiet. How does she know it got quiet if she can't hear them? So again, a contradiction of a statement by the mother of these young children who are still missing in Pictou County. The kids were out of school for 2 days, not 10 days. Technically, actually, they were out for 4 days. There was one in-service day on Wednesday. that in order, the school was not in session. So they were missing Monday, Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday from all reports that I've heard. So yeah, that is odd. Excuse me. Sorry, folks. I apologize for that. But it also goes on to state that it is, however, strange that they didn't get up with the children who were homesick. She would have had to have called the school to call them out sick, and then no one gave them breakfast. So again, some very valid points. If your children are homesick, you're going to be up, you're going to check on them, you're going to call the school to report them as out sick again, which they could have done, given that the police call was about 10 a.m. It could have been done at 8:30 in the morning, and they could have been laying down with the 16-month-old again and decide to have a little nap. So again, it could be just something that wasn't reported or stated publicly. So that's important to keep in mind. This entire time of Mom talking, sounds like she's avoiding saying "we did it," and that was Jay Lithicity. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but I apologize if not. Honestly, her story has too many details that you wouldn't even know if you were actually asleep. How do you know if they got outside and they were playing outside if you were sleeping and you can't hear the door? Well, I think that would be a logical assumption if the kids were not in the house. Obviously, they went outside if they're not in the house. But why would you add that you can't hear the sliding glass door? Well, I think that would be because the police may have asked her that. Can you hear the door? Why wouldn't you hear the door? Yada, yada. So again, she could be just bringing facts that were brought up by the police in their initial questioning, trying to get information on the case. So again, I think that's important to keep in mind as well. And I'm just playing devil's advocate. I'm not saying that you're wrong. I'm just saying that there are explanations that could be reasonable to that as well. The mother said that the kids were autistic, then saying they aren't diagnosed. That's a red flag to me. If they were autistic, then you would find out. And then she leaves with the baby. Maybe the baby should be taken away. I don't trust the mother or father. So again, that should be... From my understanding, the child, the 16-month-old baby, is in the custody of Child Protective Services in Nova Scotia. From my understanding, that she has left the area, but not with the child. She, once again, I do understand that the child, the 16-month-old, is with Child Protective Services. They have absolutely no contact with that child, from my understanding thus far. So again, important to keep that in mind. But yeah, you can see by these comments how different they are, how polarizing it can be in the situation, especially with such young children who are missing at this time. So again, it is important to pay attention to facts. Now, Just Me 531 said it's been 8 days. I live in New Brunswick, which, for those of you not aware, is a province in the Maritime region, along with Nova Scotia. So everyone is heartbroken and waiting to hear the truth. I'm so happy bigger YouTube channels are covering this. So again, it's an important case, important facts, or important situation to be covering. Every Nova Scotian hasn't stopped worrying about those babies. Thank you for covering this case, they go on to say. I have never met a little kid. Sorry, this is from PegZZ1384. Says, I've never met a little kid that would close a sliding door behind them. They said they have always had to tell them to close the door. So why would this one time the kids close the door? No way that Broken Down Shack has a quiet sliding door. I don't buy it at all. Okay, well, and that's the right of every person to either believe it or not believe it. I personally do question that as well. How do you have such a quiet sliding door on something that looks very weathered and used? I'll say it polite, keep it polite. Something else that people have been raising the question of is how do they know they went out the screen door when there was another door? Looking at the deck and the stairs at that other doorway entrance, I would think that that's probably a door that is not used for safety reasons, and that, again, if you look at those photos of that other door, you would understand that. Thank you for tuning in and watching. I am James Cousineau with ProPix Canada Media and ProPix TV here in Vancouver, British Columbia. Make sure to like, follow, and subscribe to keep up on this topic and others as they're posted. And don't forget to hit the bell to be notified instantly of new content.